Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the OverSeers. My name's Proelios, and I'm joined as usual by my co host Nightwing. This is our team preview of the Los Angeles Valiant, going into Season 5 of the Overwatch League. As we all know, the Valiant were the worst team in 2021. They had gone through a massive, uh, like, dumpster fire when they dumped the entire original roster and then moved to China from the NA region and handed over all of their operations to a Chinese company, which then created this absolutely garbage team with minimum league salary, which went winless last season. So, yeah, um, it's going to be an interesting episode because we are going to be talking about some pretty new faces in general. Starting off with actually not so new of a face, Sashin. Uh, I'm gonna give you the mic first, Nightwing. Do you like Sashin as a player? What do you think he'll contribute to the team, if anything? The stage is yours.
The fact of the matter is that SASIN, even when he played in 2020, he was not a very memorable player. I honestly did not even remember him. I thought the 2020 season just had the Hangzhou Spark playing QOQ and Ria. Uh, I don't think he was exceptional then, and I think after taking a 1.5 years worth of a break, not even playing in contenders or any other lower league, I don't think Sassen will be able to keep up with modern Overwatch uh, and like fit into Overwatch 2 very well. I think it takes an exceptional talent who is kept up with like the current trends in Overwatch and has been constantly playing Overwatch to be a solo tank for a team. But Sashin is not an exceptional talent, and he has not kept up with the game. I don't think he'll be anything great. In fact, I think he'll probably be one of the worst tanks uh, in the league, and there's a very real possibility he might be the worst, uh, despite him being somewhat passable in previous seasons.
Yeah, I honestly am not sure why Sashin's been picked up. Because when you talk about the best tank players in the Overwatch League, heck, even above average tank players in the league, Sashin's name is not going to be anywhere in the conversation. He played with the Spark. He was signed with them in 2019 and 2020, but he was never someone to watch out for even back then. He played a decent Zarya and some good Sigma here and there. His Diva was very lackluster. Uh, Plus, he's been on a break for 1 year from the Overwatch League, so I do think he's going to be at the bottom of the pack as well. So unless his mechanics are really good, I think this is a pretty weird signing, and I think it's going to hinder the Valiant in some capacity. I think let's move on to talk about the DPS, which is a much more exciting conversation. Let's first talk about Becky, who is a flex DPS player coming in from GC Busan, and he's a fairly flexible player. Well, as his job description states, he's known to play heroes like Farah and Echo. Also plays Tracer and even Doomfist, which not a lot of players are known to play. And from what I've seen, he's got good mechanics. But I would say he's still one of the weaker flex DPS in the league, in my opinion, because he's never beaten any top contenders teams while he was in Tier 2, and I've found his performances to be very inconsistent. So I find this to be a slightly odd pickup. There's a slight chance that he might only have been brought in to play the Doomfist, which is going to be a core tank hero in Overwatch 2. But I might totally be wrong.
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that Becky will be that good. I mean, there have been significantly higher seeded like uh, teams that have got their players moved from contenders to Overwatch League, and Becky basically had to work his way up from contenders trials, and then did fairly poorly in contenders Korea in terms of their ranking. Uh, and obviously they got beat out by most teams that have really exciting rookie prospects, including obviously teams like O2 Blast, etc. And that makes me not very excited for him as a rookie prospect. But considering the caliber of this team, I think he's probably like a decent fit. Uh, I don't really expect anything great from him, to be honest.
hmm and let's talk about the three more exciting prospects coming into this team, which is the trio, and I'll explain why I say trio in a bit, of Diya, Ezhan, and Innovation. Now, these three guys have been part of Team CC, which was undoubtedly the strongest team in Contenders China for a while, at different points in time. As far as I remember, it was initially Diya and Innovation as the DPS duo, and then when Diya left, they brought in Ezhan, who picked up the hitscan mantle from there on for the team. And I think let's talk about Diya first because he's kind of like the prodigal son returning to the Overwatch League. If you guys remember, he was with the Shanghai Dragons in season 1 when they went winless, and even after that for a while, but he didn't get much playtime. So he continued to grind in contenders and became one of the most formidable hit scan players in China. Even his tracer is really good. And I'm excited because he's finally going to get a starting spot in the league. And in my opinion, his aim is next level, and I think if he plays consistently well, he could even be an MVP caliber player. It remains to be seen if he lives up to the hype, but I do believe in Dia a lot because I've seen him play a lot of games in contenders, and he has never been disappointing. Yeah.
I think Dia is definitely an exceptional talent on his own. He played excellently with obviously Team CC, and he's just a really strong player in general, like you said. I think my only concern is that I have not really, uh, he did take a bit of a break, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021. I don't think he played in the 2021 contenders seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that short break uh, might just be the difference between like being exceptionally good and struggling to keep up, really. Because I think these 2021 seasons of contenders were quite crucial in establishing some of the main players of the scene in terms of rookie talent. And I think obviously Dia is not a rookie himself, considering he's played with the Shanghai Dragons, but it does mean that he might be struggling a little bit in terms of just keeping up with the game. Uh, so that's a bit of a concern of mine, but the skill he has showed in recent years, despite whatever struggles he had with the season one Shanghai Dragons, uh, he's still quite good, and he should be able to get stuff done. I think it's just that you may not see him, picked up for positions like Rookie of the Year, etc., just because the team will probably not be able to provide him the right resources, and the rest of the team will not be able to pull their weight. I think he's probably uh, a higher caliber than most of the team, and I think you may just struggle to see him succeed despite him trying to make good individual plays.
Yeah, and I do believe he took a break from professional play, but he was still playing the game. So I think it's not going to be an issue for him to play in the league essentially. Uh, all right, let's talk about Easy Han because he's another hitscan DPS who has also played for Team CC, and he turned out to be a great replacement when Dia left the team. Even though he couldn't carry fights as consistently as Dia, but he still showcased some really nutty aim. I remember when he used to play for Gen G, and they used to play with against Team CC as well. And Easyhan was one of the few hitscan DPSs who could give Dia a run for his money every now and then, especially on snipers who are his bread and butter. So you can see him really pop off on the Ash, the Widow, and the Hanzo, and it's just remarkable aim on his part. And I think he should be really competitive in the league. Um, I believe if there's any kind of sniper meta, he's going to be an instant favorite in the Eastern region. And For those of you that haven't watched him, please do. And don't worry, even if you don't, I'm pretty sure he's going to pull off some fantastic plays this season. Um, any thoughts on Easy on Nightwing?
Yeah, I mean, Ezhan is also a good talent. I may be mistaken, but I think he also played good games versus O2 Blast in the 2020 Gauntlet in, I think, the latter half of the year. Uh, I think he like it was either proper or maybe Kilo. I think probably proper that he actually beat out a fair number of times. Uh, and after that, I think there has been a slight decline, I think, in his recent performances, but I think that's just like the ups and downs of a team. That said, individually he's a good talent. He can keep up with players like Diya, and they did genuinely like beat out teams like O2 Blast as well. From whom like I'm stating that I think like players like Proper will be Rookie of the Year. So in that sense, I think I do see promise in this player as well. I wonder if like the Valiant staff and the Valiant coaches will actually want to put in Diya or Ezhan more often. I think it'll probably still be Diya, but either way, I think they're in good hands in terms of hit scan.
Hmm. And even if these two players don't cut it, the Valiant have also signed Innovation, who is a hyperflex coming in from Team CC. Now, a hyperflex, for those of you that don't know, is a player that can play hit scan, projectile, as well as flanker heroes really well. And there are probably like 5 to 6 really good hyperflexes in the Overwatch League. You have players like Leave, you have Shy, you have Kevster, you have Fleta, Proper, Sparkle, all of these players, which are really rare to find. And I think Innovation is also quite a gem of a player, also coming in from Team CC. And he also had been on that team for more than 2 years and got them first and second place finishes in many tournaments. And he is quite an explosive player. And his best hero is probably the Tracer, in my opinion, on whom he has shown like really good mechanics and also the ability to stick pulse bombs quite easily. So he's all in all a very adaptable player. He's really smart as well, and will be able to fill in for almost any DPS role for the Valiant. And as a plus point, he's got synergy with Diya as well as Easyhan, with whom he has gone to dominate contenders China with Team CC. So I'm really excited, especially for these three players, because they've got a lot of history going on among them, and they've also got Becky, who can be like a good backup flex DPS, I guess. But even if Becky weren't here, I would totally trust these three players to handle the DPS situation for this team.
Yeah, I mean, in 2020, there was a very real conversation where you could put forward the fact that innovation was at times better than proper even when they were competing on a sort of an even stage. Uh, I think maybe today that's not the case, but back then it was a conversation, and it could be brought up again in terms of individual skill. Maybe I think over time, it's just that Team CC declined because some of their other parts of the roster outside the DPS line sort of dwindled. You saw players like Aim God come in, who I'm still not very high on. Um, and I think that's part of the reason why the team did not do so well in the 2021 like recent contenders seasons. That said, I think these players do have talent and they have pre-existing synergy. Uh, they have overlapping hero pools. I think innovation is probably the most flexible out of all of them. Uh, and you'd probably see him come in, and then whichever other uh, player seems to be the best in sort of scrims will sort of complement innovation coming in as the second DPS, in my opinion. Either way, though, they've got a decent DPS line uh, outside of Becky, so they should be able to, at least not be a hindrance in terms of whatever comp the LA Valiant wants to play this season.
Yep, yep. Let's talk about the supports then, which are Lengsa and ColdEst. And let me talk about Lengsa first. So he's a main support coming in from Team Chaser, which is the Chengdu Hunters Academy team, and he used to play for the Hunters as well back in season 3. And the benefit of having him on the roster is that he's a main support who can also play flex supports if needed, as we have noticed from his time with the Hunters back in season 3. I remember he used to play in Ana Zen compositions alongside Kyo. and they used to play this kind of aggressive dive comp, especially on Helios well, which worked out really well for them. Uh, because Lengsa has pretty good aim for a main support, and he can just kind of spam the right positions on Zen and get a bunch of value. So even though I don't think he's a fantastic player, I think he's all right, and um, in recent times he has also impressed me with his brig play. So I'm intrigued to see how influential he is on this team. I do feel like he's not going to be a standout player, and he's not as impressive as a lot of main supports out there. But I think he's a serviceable pickup, all in all.
I think it's hard to really say that Lengsa is like one of the better main supports out there. That said, I think his flexibility is definitely a factor which some other main supports don't actually have. Like he's even played Baptiste in contenders, which is a little like uncommon for main support players outside of players like Moth. Uh, and like you said, that Anna Zen comp that he played with Kyo, uh, and that makes him a good sort of like good candidate for going into Overwatch 2, right? You don't really know when you're going to be struck with either some kind of Lucio Moira comp or still potentially the double flex support bet that most teams hedge their bets on in terms of signing players. So I think in that sense, Lengsa is still a good candidate in terms of just the kind of player that you want for going into a new game where you're fairly uncertain what's going to be busted and what's not. So in that sense, I think yeah, he's a good addition.
So he's also got ColdEst to complement him on the support line, and ColdEst naturally coming in from the Hangzhou Spark, whom he spent 2 years with. Um, and ColdEst is a again, very lackluster pickup, I feel. He joined the league 2 years ago with a lot of hype around him because he was this kind of Zen Ana god from the Chinese region. And he hasn't seen a lot of play time since then. And whenever he has played, he's not done anything impressive. I am willing to give him the benefit of doubt since he hasn't had a stable starting spot in the league yet. But even the fact that he hasn't had that starting spot for 2 years worries me a little bit because if you were that good, your coaches would put you above your core flex support on the roster, right? And none of the 20 million head coaches the Hangzhou Spark had in the past 2 years thought of doing that. So it concerns me a little bit, but yeah, we'll just see.
Yeah, I think the fact that ColdEst is has not seen any playtime during his time on the Hangzhou Spark, and the fact that he constantly got just ignored basically by most of the team, apart from like one match where they decided that they would make like something out of their investment into him. Uh, that doesn't really bode very well for him. I mean, uh, they mostly just played MCD last year, and MCD wasn't exceptional by any means. But if he's getting played over ColdEst, that means ColdEst should not be extremely exceptional either. Obviously, there was, that some of that Korean bias last year from what you could see. Even players like Shy, who are extremely, extremely good, as we know now. Chinese players were just not getting fielded initially. But that said, even after staff changes, you could see that ColdEst was just not being put in, right? So that just raises a bit of a question mark for me. And just makes me think that there are probably better counterparts on flex supports on the other teams, and ColdEst will struggle to keep up with them. Not only because he hasn't uh, like proven it, it's also because like he hasn't actually seen that much playtime. You need to play on the field to get a feel for it. It's not like he's dropped down to contenders and grinded it out there and got a feel for the game that way. So I think he'll just find it hard to get into that competitive mindset and that competitive spirit and be able to clutch it out in matches currently because he's been out of it for a while in some sense.
Yeah, all in all, I do think that the support line is going to struggle a little bit because it definitely seems like one of the weakest ones in the league at the moment. But let's talk about the coaching staff as well. Um they've got head coach NoHill, who is coming in from Team CC, like a lot of these players, and he was the mastermind behind Team CC's success in the past 3 years. So I'm really high on him. He has already worked with Diya, Ezhan, and Innovation, and knows how to utilize them well and what sort of player rotations to put them in. So I'm expecting him to make a noticeable splash in the league, especially with the help of these three DPS players. And to assist him, there's WooHyaL, who is a Korean player who has just turned into a coach right now. Uh, Honestly, if WooHyaL was signed as a tank, I'd be pretty damn happy for this team. But this is going to be his first coaching gig, so I'm not really sure how things will go here. Maybe he'll just spend this year learning from NoHill and do some individual player coaching, and maybe next year he'll help out with more strategic decision making. But it seems like a risk to have no experienced coach backing up NoHill over here, because he's going to have his work cut out for him, especially with a really lackluster tank player that he has to coach, as well as two supports which haven't really proven themselves in the league just yet. So I think it's going to be a bit difficult for the coaching staff to manage this situation in general.
Yeah, I mean, I really question the inclusion of WooHyal as a assistant coach instead of a player. I mean, obviously good for him to try to like extend his career in some sense, because like your life as a player is obviously relatively short lived, right? That said, the most recent thing he's done before this is actually play on Team CC as a tank player, and all of his experience before that has been on the field playing. So it's just another question mark for me, similar to players like Miro, etc. But at least Miro was successful in his own time, right? Like WooHyal was not exceptionally like great. He was, when he played in season one, that was uh, mostly just like Fury being played over him as well. So it's not like he's received a lot of success at the Overwatch League stage earlier. Uh, he has played really well for Team CC in the past, outside of the very latest season, but that doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me. NoHill, though, yes, he's created really good results with Team CC, and he's worked with good pieces in the past. He's got a few of them now, but some pieces like SASIN, I really question. So I think he'll try to do the best he can with this team. But to be honest, I think that tank line is probably the largest weakness, and the support line is also not exceptionally strong either. So I think he'll still have his work cut out for him to make this team competitive. At best, I think this team can compete with the Guangzhou Charge, and maybe if the Philadelphia Fusion really slips, then they can compete with them. Because Philly also has a solid DPS line relatively, but so does this team, right? Uh, that said, like if the Valiant is really well coached and Sashin is not as disappointing as expected, then maybe they can clutch out a few wins. Generally, though, I think they'll probably be at the bottom of APAC, maybe beating out the Guangzhou Charge at best.
I am a little more confident in this team, Nightwing, because what I'm reading here is a team that has invested heavily into the DPS department, probably realizing that DPS is going to be the most carry heavy role going into Overwatch 2, at least at the beginning. So I think they are actually in a good spot with these three DPS players of Diya, Easyhan, and Innovation. Um, I think the best looks will and best plays and best fights will come just from these DPS players, and I think that they won't necessarily struggle against some of these lower tier teams in the APAC region. I think they can definitely be competitive over there as well. Uh, they can certainly match up with the Philly Fusion, I feel, and even with the Guangzhou Charge. Um, I don't think they are anywhere close to the anywhere close to the Shanghai Dragons. Of course, the Hunters are in a different situation right now because the team is in flux because of some management issues. But I do think that the Valiant are at worst probably like a middle of the pack APAC team, and at their best, I think if it's a meta that heavily favors hitscan and allows a lot of flexibility, then they could even break into the top three in APAC for the the duration of that tournament. So I feel like as long as a lot of the playmaking pressure lies with the DPS players, who are also quite low resource in general, I feel like this team can still be competitive. Although I don't think they can break anywhere near the top tiers, it's a good start, and I think they can think about picking up more players or try to poach some of them from teams like the Hunters, which are, in the midst of an overhaul. So I think if they can, grab someone like Monk or Fawe from the Hunters, I think it's going to be a much stronger roster just because of that. Um, but yeah, just those are my general thoughts. Anything more to add here, Nightwing?
Yeah, I think the point about them probably poaching Chengdu players is important because obviously, uh, they've got their like travel permissions, etc., set up already. It's quite late to do like a lot of visa stuff and get players signed to NA teams, right? At this point, so you may just see uh, you know, players move from one China-based team to the other. In this case, if like you actually do find out that uh, Chengdu players are leaving the roster and going to other teams, so in that case, the Valiant is a prime candidate for players to move to. Uh, I hopefully like do not see the LA Valiant leave come up. That would be probably one of the most cursed things I would see in my life, but. Uh, Apart from that, yeah, they can probably pick up a few players and round out the roster a little bit better. I would really love for them to pick up a tank, but Chengdu only has Gaga. So unless they pick up Gaga, there's no real candidate for that either. Because I do not have any faith in Sashin whatsoever. I think they could use maybe one more support. Uh, because I think that this roster is not bad, and it's definitely not going to uh, be like uh, completely winless or anything. I think they're going to pick up a good number of wins throughout this season. It's just that I don't see them being, at that very top. I think you might as well say that they might make it to the middle of the pack. Uh, but I don't think you can go any higher because there's like almost a tier break uh, in terms of like Shanghai and some of the other teams. And even Seoul is like incredibly solid. So I think it's still going to be tough for Valiant because they'll be competing in sort of a gauntlet between every other team that's remaining in the APAC region, and often they'll probably lose out because their support line and their tank line is not strong. Right, that's two large weaknesses, and however good your Tracer or Widow or whoever else plays, like if you've got 3 out of 5 players that are just not doing anything, that's just not really something you can pull off very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another thing that we forgot to mention here is that this team consists of Chinese and Korean players. So there could be some communication issues, but all in all, a lot of these players have played in Chinese and Korean mixed rosters before. So I think it could be a very niche issue if at all, but it's just something worth mentioning. So yeah, I think we've pretty much covered all of our points about the LA Valiant. So we are gonna end this episode now. And remember, guys, if you like our analyses, do remember to like our videos, comment about it, share it with other Overwatch League fans, and also join our Discord, which I'll put in the description below, so you can, maybe do some fantasy leagues with us. Just join us in live streaming the Overwatch League together, watch parties, and just talk about the league in general because we do have a channel dedicated to that. So, yep, we will see you hopefully in our Discord and in the next episode, which will be about the London Spitfire. Bye bye.